everybody. It's Sunday, May 11th. The show is Male Mentoring. Your host is me, Henry Macko. Tonight we have a dynamite topic and a couple of dynamite guests. The topic is the Satanic cult that rules the world. Modern history, perhaps all history, has to be rewritten. Perhaps one day it will be. And it has to be rewritten because rather than being the outcome of random events and random forces and conflicts of interest, I suspect it will be revealed as the process by which a satanic cult with a multi-generational agenda is gradually taking control over the planet Earth and creating a new world order. Now, our guests tonight are Christopher John Bjerknes and Bedros Hadjian. Christopher Bjerknes is a researcher, lives in Chicago, and he is the author of a couple of books, one on Einstein as a plagiarist, and another on the Holocaust of the Armenian people, which he ascribes to the Sabbateans or organized Jewry. And our other guest is his partner in arms, Bedros Hadjian, who is an Armenian priest who lives in Los Angeles. Now, I'm just waiting for Chris to come on the line. We had him a minute ago, but he seems to have gone off the line. So until he comes back, I'm just going to read from an interview I had with Christopher and posted on my site. Bjerknes, who's 42, thinks he knows what plagues mankind and believes his knowledge is necessary to stop Armageddon. Bjerknes says a heretical cult, the Sabbatean Frankists, controls organized Jewry, including Zionism and Freemasonry. They began as followers of Shabbatai Zvi and later Joseph Frank. They believe that these men were messiahs, and their souls have transmigrated down to the Rothschild dynasty, who are now kings of the Jews. According to their Masonic system, redemption requires that the Rothschilds become God, king of the world. They foresee the sacrifice of 2/3 of all Jews and the destruction and enslavement of the rest of mankind. Bjerknes believes this demented creed actually is the motive force behind history, including all wars and world government. Bjerknes is proud of his Norwegian Jewish heritage. His maternal grandfather was a famous musician, and he was Jewish. He has written 2 massive books, one about Einstein as a plagiarist, and another about the Sabbatean-inspired Armenian genocide. Okay, hopefully after this break, Chris will be able to join us for an interview, and so will Bedros.
Once upon a time, Megan, people bought their food at a grocery store.
Oh, I remember.
They're there, Mama.
A grocery store, Dad?
Yes, dear, but that was long ago.
But where did our food come from?
InternetGrocer.net.
InternetGrocer.net? So all these cans?
In uncertain times, we must be prepared. So we buy real canned meats, real canned cheese, and real canned butter from InternetGrocer.net.
and it's real good, Dad.
Only the highest quality dehydrated and freeze-dried foods and other emergency supplies, drop shipped direct from the manufacturers right to our door.
So having stored food on hand means we don't have to go into town, right?
Your father's a wise man, Megan.
Be ready for an emergency with InternetGrocer.net's one-year food supply, featuring the best variety in the business. Foods that will store 7 to 15 years or longer, unopened. Go to Internet-Grocer.net. That's Internet-Grocer.net or call 903-356-6443. American adventurer Jim Humble discovered how a simple chemical compound and powerful oxidizer, chlorine dioxide, could be effectively used to reduce toxicity within the human body. The buzz on Jim's discovery, MMS, Miracle Mineral Supplement, is spreading, but not the understanding. Until now. Understanding MMS, Conversations with Jim Humble is a new DVD available at understanding-mms.com. The Understanding MMS DVD will show how you can be a part of your own solution to toxicity. Here's the documentary producer.
This is Adam Abraham, inviting you to get informed and help others to be informed of this amazing way to reduce the body's load of toxins, harmful microorganisms, and pathogens from the waters inside our bodies.
Get your understanding today for only $29.95 at understanding-mms.com. That's understanding-mms.com. Use passcode RBN to receive 10% off.
Our health really depends on it.
Hi, this is Dave from Ready Reserve Foods. I have been waiting patiently for the government and mainstream media to inform you of what is turning out to be the biggest problem facing the world in the last 50 years. For the last 3 years, the Earth has consumed more food than it has been able to produce, and it has now finally caught up with us. In the U.S., commodities such as flour and rice are already being rationed, and the next rice crop won't be available for another 4 to 5 months. It's fall in the Southern Hemisphere, and many countries are short the food necessary to make it through the winter and have stopped exporting certain commodities altogether. Remember our trade deficit? Trillions of dollars have stacked up outside the country and are now rushing in to buy our food production at any price. By late summer, if not early fall, it is likely our government will step in and control food and food exports under martial law. Call Ready Reserve Foods at 1-800-453-2202, 1-800-453-2202, or visit us at www.readyreservefoods.com, 1-800-453-2202.
Okay, we're back with Christopher John Bjerknes, who is a scholar, one of the scholars I have a great deal of respect for, because he has really looked into the hidden forces behind modern history. And basically, as I understand him, he believes that modern history is really the acting out of a bizarre, occult plan. Is that right, Christopher?
It could certainly be described in those terms, yes, absolutely. And I think it's a plan that has been iterated and recorded, and the plan itself matches events in a way that can't be explained other than the fact that it is the manifestation of that plan.
Okay, now we're not going to pull our punches here. As I understand it, you believe that it's essentially Pharisaic Judaism that's behind this organized Jewry, that's behind this long, multi-generational plan. Is that right?
That is right, yes.
Right.
And I would be happy to explain why I believe that.
Please go ahead.
Well, if you look at events, in particular the world wars, the formation of the State of Israel, the planned building of a third Temple of Solomon, the steady inclination of all nations towards world government and a single religion, all of these things are in line with Jewish messianic prophecy. And the forces which have been pushing us towards those things have been chiefly Jewish forces, and in particular Shabbatayan Jewish forces.
Now, what do you mean when you refer to Sabbatean, the Sabbateans? Who are the Sabbateans?
Judaism, as I'm sure many people are aware, holds that there will be a Messiah. And the Christians believe that the Jewish Messiah arrived in the form of Jesus Christ, who was of the lineage of King David, and that Jesus Christ fulfilled those messianic prophecies. But the Jews, because Jesus did not do the things that they expected that the Jewish Messiah would do, did not accept Jesus Christ in general as the Messiah, even though Jesus' original followers were Jews. They believe, the Shabbataians believe, that a man named Shabbatai Tzvi was the Jewish Messiah, and that his soul lives on and transmigrates through other people, including Jacob Frank, Baruch Yah Russo, and others, and I believe the Rothschild dynasty. And they hold that this man is the King of the Jews. He represents the divine presence of God on earth, and Shabbatai Tzvi appeared and claimed to be the Messiah in 1666 and amassed many followers. And the movement reached peak under Jacob Frank, where I believe it had over 1 million followers.
What happened to them then?
Well, there was a conflict with other Jews, with Orthodox Jews, with Pharisaical Judaism, and the conflict was chiefly over the legitimacy of the Talmud. The Shabbataians put more emphasis on Kabbalah, and specifically they emphasized the Lurian Kabbalah, and they do believe that Shabbatai Tzvi was the Messiah and that Jacob Frank had inherited the soul of Shabbatai Tzvi. Most Jews opposed this idea and considered it a heresy, and there was a conflict between the two of them. And what happened chiefly was that the Shabbataians pretended to convert to Catholicism and took over most of the Catholic Church of Poland, Moravia, and other places, and they utilized their political power to then attack Jews. And they have continually been waging war against Jews and the rest of the human race ever since, and have brought about horrific events for the broader Jewish community and for the rest of the world, including the Holocaust.
So these Sabbateans, they not only do they infiltrate the Polish Catholicism, but didn't they also infiltrate Turkish, the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire?
Yes, and that began as a process with Shabbatai Tzvi himself. And it also has a history in Judaism. If you look back to the book of Esther, you can see what is called crypto-Judaism, where leading Jews pretend to be of another faith or ethnicity in order to subvert the government of another people, and often to use that government as a military force to then pit against a third party. Now, what happened in the Turkish Empire, the descendants of Shabbatai Tzvi, and specifically the descendants of Baruch Yah Russo, formed a strong sect of what were known as Dernmei, or converts. And these people pretended to be converts to Islam. They would change their names to Islamic names, but would always have a secret Jewish name. They would live in the community as Muslims, and often one could spot them because they were the most religiously specific and followed every Muslim rite. And they were apparently the most religious of Muslims, but they were always secretly Jews. This Dernmei sect developed especially in Salonika, which you can consider Greece or Thrace. It was passed around. It was a part of the Ottoman Empire. And they eventually formed what were called the Young Turks. Now, the Kabbalah represents a revolutionary spirit that takes as the Jewish mission, the mission to subvert other governments through revolution, to ultimately amalgamate all governments as a world government, as the fulfillment of Jewish messianic prophecy. They formed the Young Turks, and in 1908 and 1909, they deposed the Sultan of the Turkish Empire and took over his government, pretending to be Muslim Turks. They were financed through the Rothschilds and other Jewish international bankers. And when they took over the Ottoman Empire, they sought to dissolve the Ottoman Empire because Palestine the territory of Palestine was a part of the Ottoman Empire. And in order to free it up for the Zionist movement so that Jews could move from Russia and America to Palestine, they had to break apart the Ottoman Empire, and they had to weaken the Arabs, who were more opposed to Zionism than the Turks themselves. And the way that they did this was they instigated wars in the Balkans, pitting Christians against Muslims, and they began to Christians and use their influence in the international press to raise the ire of Christians in the West against the Ottoman Empire. In many ways, it mirrors what is taking place today, where we see Israel pitting nations of the Middle East against the U.S. and the U.S. against nations of the Middle East. It's a very similar pattern to what happened that eventually culminated in World War I, the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire, the freeing up of Palestine under the British mandate, and the involvement of the French in Syria and Lebanon, which has
Christopher,
to this day.
Christopher, as you know, young Turkey, but there was also young Italy, young Poland, young England. In fact, Disraeli was a member of Young England, wasn't he?
I wasn't aware of the Young England movement. I was certainly aware of the Young Italy movement and Mazzini and the others who were involved with that, but I had not heard the term Young England. You're teaching me something.
Well, I think I ran across that. I ran across that reference, and I guess the point is they use the same modus operandi to take over every country.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. And it even predates the Shabbatayan movement. Oliver Cromwell was involved in those kinds of machinations, and it goes all the way back to the Roman period and the Greek period and the Egyptian period. And it works. Amazingly, it continues to work for them.
And what is their...
important part that I should mention of the Young Turk movement was the mass murder of the Armenians, the genocide of the Armenians, which accomplished many things, too much to go into in a broad overview of the movements we're discussing, but that's certainly a big part.
Maybe if we have time later in the show, I'll ask you about that, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
So what is the goal? What is the ultimate goal of all this subversion?
Well, the fundamental beliefs at work relate to segregation. The books of Ezra and Nehemiah, if you consider them different works, relate to the idea that Jews contain a divine seed and should not intermingle with other, what they consider races of human beings. So there has always been a push in Judaism to be a people apart and to remain segregated. And that has religious aspects, it has political aspects, and it has eugenicist aspects to it. I think one of the strongest motives of Jewish leaders who themselves have instigated anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish movements was to keep Jews segregated. And you always see whenever Jews begin to assimilate and have very good relations with non-Jews, that Jewish leaders will step forward with their money and their influence to create hostilities and tensions. So that's one of the motives, is to keep the Jewish race allegedly pure and segregated. Another one of the motives is to create a one-world government which will follow the divine order that the Jews believe has been confused by the admixture of Satan's blood in the human race with the introduction of the Gentiles. I hear
wow. That's the music, indicating we have 3 minutes of commercials, but we'll be back in 3 minutes to take up this very provocative but very revealing perspective on world history.
Are you new to freeze-dried foods? These fine, easily storable foods were first developed for the U.S. space program. Today, the U.S. military and the U.S. submarine service enjoy using these products extensively. Freeze-dried foods typically maintain their high nutritional value in excess of 30 years. Why store emergency food? Keeping food on hand for emergencies protects you the same way as does insurance on your home or car. With Freeze-Dry Guy freeze-dried foods in your food reserve, you can be ready for just about any unexpected crisis. In today's turbulent times of uncertainty, global crisis, world market collapse, stock market volatility, increased frequency of natural and man-made disasters, there has never been a better time to get a survival insurance policy. Take the necessary steps to protect your family in these uncertain times. Visit freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-FOOD, 866-404-3663. We pay the freight within the lower 48 states.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare with your children being raised by someone else? With our free information, you can lead a less stressful life, work from home, and start earning money as soon as next week.
I was about to be laid off from a company that was going bankrupt. On top of that, I wanted my kids to have mommy care, not daycare. My first month, I made $1,000 part-time. After 90 days, I was home with my children, and for the past 7 years, I've been here for my 3 little girls. I love this business.
Go to freedom94.com. Get out of the rat race and start earning great money as soon as next week.
I was skeptical. However, I had to get out of corporate America. Both me and my wife were able to quit our jobs and now make over $10,000 a month from home.
Go to freedom94.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom94.com. Freedom94.com and start earning great money as soon as next week.
Reports are coming in from all over North America about wild MPG.
My 97 Honda Civic went from just over 31 miles per gallon to over 50 miles per gallon.
My 98 Plymouth Breeze went from just over 38 miles per gallon to over 77 miles per gallon.
My 95 Ford F-150 went from 12.7 miles per gallon to 33 miles per gallon.
It's not a hybrid. It's not an electric. Wild MPG is an inexpensive modification that gives you incredible savings, a cleaner engine, better performance, more horsepower, less dependence on foreign oil, and better gas mileage. Far better gas mileage. Find out more at wildmpg.com. Wild MPG means more money in your pocket. The Wild MPG kit is absolutely guaranteed to increase your gas mileage by at least 50%, or the cost of the kit will be refunded to you. Visit wildmpg.com. WildMPG.com. Welcome to the revolution in fuel economy technology. WildMPG.com.
Okay, we're back with Christopher John Yerknes, whose website, because listeners are calling and asking, his website is www.jewishracism.com. And there's plenty on that site, including the text of 2 500-page books, which contain all kinds of hidden history. And also make sure you check out his blog, which is linked at the top. Christopher, are you there?
I am.
Christopher, I think you'll agree that there's a strong desire on the part of ordinary Jews to assimilate, and up until, well, in fact, the majority of Jews probably, given if they were asked, would say they identified with the national interests of their country and not with this bizarre New World Order plan. And I'm a Jew by birth. I don't subscribe to the religion, and I certainly would call myself an assimilated Jew. I identify with the welfare of humanity as a whole and of my nation. Would you agree with me about assimilation?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm a product of it myself. My grandfather was Jewish on my mother's side. And this is not a new thing. In the Bible, the Jewish leaders were always fighting against Jewish assimilation to the Canaanites and to other peoples. because they viewed it as a breach of the covenant with God and a violation of their religion. And they felt that they were justified in murdering apostate Jews, and the Hebrew Bible is filled with stories of the murder of apostate Jews. So it's not a new phenomenon, but there is a new aspect to it. And that aspect is that the Shabbatayan Frankist branch of the group of Jewish peoples tried to instigate that as a movement. They tried to create Jewish apostasy through Moses Mendelssohn and the Reformation of Orthodox Judaism.
Now, would you say apostasy is really assimilation? Why did the Sabbateans promote assimilation?
Because they believed that they could provoke God to destroy the earth, and to bring evil throughout the earth would provoke God to cleanse the earth by destroying it. And in that way they could bring about the Messianic era, and they could have the fulfillment of all their Messianic prophecies. And in their writings, and this is recorded by prominent scholars, including, I know you're aware of Gershom Shalom and others, that they believe that it is their mission to bring evil, and that evil itself comes from God. They believe that evil is a product of God. That's why I agree with you when you say it's a Luciferian or Satanic sect of Judaism, because they take certain passages in Job and certain passages in Isaiah to say that evil as well as good comes from God and has equal footing and is equally useful, if not more useful than good, in accomplishing the will of God. So they wanted to turn Jews away from God so that God, in his wrath, would destroy the Jews and destroy the world, cleanse the world, and then provide them with a new world which they would inhabit by themselves.
What exactly do they want to happen? Are they trying to bring about a third world war in order to bring because they think that's going to result in their Messiah taking over?
Yes, I think so. And I think they're trying to pit Southern Christian against Islam to bring about that third world war. And I think they're also setting up China, India, and Russia as an Asian bloc in that war. They're trying to build up the armaments in the Middle East. In order to have a good bloody war, you have to have well-equipped armies. So people think that when we're supplying, say, Saudi Arabia with weaponry, it's to avoid war, but it's actually in preparation of war. You'll note that both before World War II and World War I, there was a huge buildup of armaments, and that the powers that be did not instigate the war until the armies were well equipped, so that it would be a very devastating war, and leave the empires in ruins, so that from the ashes of those ruins they could begin to instigate world government. And after the First World War, they instigated the League of Nations. And after the Second World War, they instigated the United Nations and other world government bodies.
Do you really think this...
Was that the primary and original functions of both were the Zionist agenda?
Right. Now, obviously, you put most emphasis on this thing being theologically or messianically or occult driven, ideologically driven, as opposed to my own preference is that this is what the central bankers have to do in order to institute their global power, in order to make sure everyone pays back the trillions of dollars that they created out of nothing. In other words, my view is they're just translating their monopoly on credit into a total monopoly on human, on power and on thought, a total control of the human race. And it's basically just a mad cancer desire for power. And that this theological thing is just fitting in. It helps them to enlist a whole bunch of Jews. What would you say to that?
Or do you want to wait till... And it'll be a complex answer to a straightforward question.
Okay, we'll wait till after the break, and then we have 17 minutes uninterrupted.
Great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Hey everybody, this is James Martinez from the Cash Flow Show. I want to ask you one question and one question only. You're ready to change your life. Now, as you begin to think about that question, how many of you are swimming in credit card debt? Tired of credit cards controlling your life? Behind on your payments? Struggling to make ends meet? All that? Worried about your financial well-being? You're going to end that now. Enough is enough. This is hot. Are you ready to feel good now? That's right. Call our toll-free number and listen to our 12-minute overview. It explains who we are and what we do to end your credit card debt. Leave your name and number after the message and do it today. Call 888-213-7655. That's 888-213-7655. Freedom is a phone call away. Away for you to feel good now. 888-213-7655. 888-213-7655.
In Matthew 24, the disciples asked Jesus, "What shall be the signs of thy coming and the end of the world?" Jesus answered them, "You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, diseases, earthquakes in many places." People everywhere are trying to understand these climatic world events in light of human wisdom, but without the wisdom of God, this is impossible. Our ministry would like to offer information on the Mark of the Beast and the Unholy Alliance. It includes 4 books and several DVDs. It discusses America and Prophecy, the Antichrist, Tyrants and Wars, Secret Societies, the New World Order, and much more. So to be prepared for what is coming on the world as an overwhelming surprise, call for your free materials. Packet F, 888-211-1715. Again, 888-211-1715. Or mail P.O. Box 771, Athens, Tennessee, 37371.
The Berkey Light's unique design combines the age-old process of microporous filtration coupled with modern state-of-the-art technology and the highest quality materials, bringing you the finest water filter available anywhere. The revolutionary Berkey Light, with its exclusive black Berkey filter elements, remove pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels. Harmful or unwanted chemicals are reduced to below detectable levels. And it reduces nitrates and unhealthy minerals like lead and mercury while leaving the nutritional minerals your body needs. Made of durable Lexan, the material used in making bulletproof glass, the system is durable, rugged, and yet attractive. The Berkey Light is transparent, so there is no guesswork when refilling the system. The water level is always visible. The rechargeable LED lighting system is beautiful as a night light and as necessary in emergency situations. Get the Berkey Light, the transparent water filter, for only $259.
Call today, 877-605-9200. That's 877-605-9200.
Okay, we're back with Christopher John Bjerknes, whose website is jewishlacism.com. And from there you can link to his blog, which is always provocative and interesting. And if you'd like to ask Christopher a question, the number is 800-313-9443. But we're screening the questions, so give Manny, our operator, the question, and if it fits, we'll take it. Okay, Christopher, before the break, I was saying that the nations of the world owe the Rothschilds, the other central bankers, billions, if not trillions of dollars, which they created out of thin air. So it stands to reason they need a world government to make sure that no nation defaults on this imaginary debt. But you're saying, so I was asking you if that isn't the real motive behind this world government.
I think that there are complex motivations that are interlaced in ways that one has to understand Judaism in order to understand how they function and the processes involved. Judaism is a very political as well as religious theology. It is a theology which is based on the idea of one king ruling the entire world as a divine presence of God from a throne on Mount Zion in Jerusalem, and that this will be the seat of world government. So I think you would agree that there's no conflict between the religious plan and the plan which you ascribe to economic, political power motivations.
They complement each other. I agree with you. They complement each other.
They complement with each other, and they're consistent with one another. There's no conflict because they see themselves as Jews, and they see themselves as the leaders of the Jews. The Jewish people have historically seen them as the leaders of the Jewish people. At least Zionist Jews have viewed them that way and have looked to them for help and for their power repeatedly. For example, when the Russian Jews were subject to pogroms, they looked to the Rothschilds to rescue, and the Rothschilds did aid them. Not as much as they could have, but they did. They were also secretly behind the pogroms, but that's a whole other story. So if we establish that those two things are consistent, I would say that they are two faces of the same coin. You cannot have the fulfillment of the religious prophecies by God. It never happened. It never will happen. It has to come about through political and economic means. These are the only means available to religious Jews to fulfill their messianic prophecies. And Jewry has been frustrated with that ever since the Romans chased the Jews out of Judea from 70 AD to about 135 AD in the diaspora. There has been a constant yearning next year in Jerusalem. The only way that could be brought about is to destroy the other nations involved and to amass a great deal of political power. So all of these things complement one another and are part and parcel of the same process.
So,
but I'm sure there are. Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sure there are many of the people involved at the top levels who view things as you describe them. And I'm sure there are also many of the people at the very top levels who view things as I describe them and who believe that they derive a great deal of power by committing the mass slaughter of large numbers of human beings. And I think that the psychosis involved in their attitudes towards other human beings are not simply the product of greed or a need to capture debt, because they could do it in ways which would be less likely to bring the wrath of the world upon themselves. So I think that there must be religious motivations behind what they're doing. For example, the formation of the state has been terribly painful for the whole Jewish community for 2,000 years. It has never brought good to the Jewish people, and it has never made it easier for Jewish leaders to control those things that they seek to control. So I think there has to be a religious and a racial motivation behind that, because they're not stupid people and they're not unclever people. And I don't think they deliberately harm themselves. And I do think that the pursuit of many Zionist objectives is very harmful to themselves and to the Jewish people as a whole, and always has been.
How do the perpetrators of this demented plan, how do they interact and relate to non-Jews and to in every country they control?
My observation has been that they are people try to control the thought processes and the public opinion of every nation that they can. And they do that through the education system. They do that by controlling the politicians, and they do that by controlling the press and shaping public opinion. They also do that through Freemasonry and other secret organizations, through infiltrating various churches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
They even begin religions and change religions. In America, there has been a Unitarian push, which is very similar to Judaism, which their money has always been behind and has culminated in today's Christian Zionist televangelists, who are a great threat to our nation and to the human race.
Well, yeah, could you just elaborate on why the Christian Zionism is such a threat? Chris, are you there? Yeah.
You're cutting out.
Yeah, me too. Can you just elaborate on why Christian Zionism is such a threat to us all?
Because Christian Zionists, in my anecdotal experience and in what I've seen on television, have very bad personal characteristics which make them exceptionally dangerous. They are extremely selfish in that they want to bring about nuclear world war in the false belief that they will be raptured and meet Jesus if they bring about the destruction of the human race. And I can't think of anything more heinous or selfish than that. They are also extremely gullible because they call themselves Christians, but they reject Christian theology and instead adopt a theology of hatred and war. They are openly seeing themselves as warmongers, and Jesus Christ himself said, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
Well, they sound a lot like the Sabbateans, who seem to believe there has to be a catastrophe in order for the Messiah to occur. It sounds like the whole world is being led by people who are insane, from the way you describe it, and certainly events bear that out. But just so we can understand your perspective, how do you place a group like the Bilderbergs? You're familiar with the Bilderbergs?
I am familiar with them. I have not done a great deal of research on the history of the meetings and the attendees of the meetings, and that's one deficiency in my knowledge of the subject. I do believe that there is something to it. There has to be communications between powerful people, and I'm sure that that is one of the by which the networking takes place. The communications are passed along, decisions are passed along, and there is again a networking and a meeting of the minds that takes place and a communication of information among very powerful people, and I would be suspicious of anyone who is involved with it.
But how do you account for the fact that the leadership of every country, every religion, every major institution and many corporations have simply gone over unthinkingly to this agenda that seems to emanate from the Rothschilds and the central bankers and so on?
I think the primary reason is there's good money in it, and if you go against it, you're cut down quickly, and you don't see that there are alternatives out there. And it's generally people do those things which are easy for them to do. And these people make it easy for them to succeed if they go along with this agenda, and very difficult and very lonely for them if they don't go along with this agenda. They have a lot of power, and power accumulates in a way that it perpetuates itself, just as institutions perpetuate themselves.
Well, I would...
They also have the means to bring nations into war if they go against them.
But
and,
Christopher, it's my observation, and tell me if you agree or not, but they've basically expanded their satanic cult to include anybody, Jewish or not, who wants to join, who will help them advance it.
I would.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yes. Of course, yes.
Right.
They'll welcome anyone who will help them destroy. And they will, their first and best hope is that people will join them, not that people will fight.
Like how would you
joining them often means joining opposing camps, which is really the beauty of their evil system, is that to join them often means to destroy yourself. Just as joining the Nazi Party, with the idea of fighting them, actually led to the destruction of Germany.
Do you believe the Sabbateans were behind the Nazis?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, people don't. There's a lot of nostalgia for the Nazis and for Hitler, but they don't seem to understand that there's no way Hitler could have come to power or even waged war without the covert support of the international bankers that he supposedly condemned.
I agree with you. And Hitler was an agent of theirs. Hitler came to power when they threw lots of money behind him. He worked closely with the Warburgs and the Rothschilds. He was their product from the beginning. He was a Bolshevik. He was controlled opposition to Soviets. He made a pact with the Soviets. They destroyed Eastern Europe, and they ultimately made it a communist bloc in support of the Soviet Union. He destroyed the beautiful nation of Germany. He destroyed European Jewry, and he brought about the formation of the State of Israel. How could he not have been their agent? He accomplished for them everything they sought to accomplish, and he did it in a very short period of time. He was a monster. He was an inhuman monster.
And exactly, and you realize they created Hitler and the Depression and then the war, and all in the space of about 20 years. It just shows that history is just a charade, that it's a theater that they put on for us in order to manipulate us and mold us into the shape they want us to be in, and destroy countries, destroy nations, destroy morale, destroy families. We're all being socially engineered constantly. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yes.
And the role of Freemasonry, essentially, it starts out with this is a philanthropic organization trying to make good men better. But the people that rise within Freemasonry are people who are willing to carry out their evil agenda, and so Freemasonry just serves as a pool which allows them to network, get information, keep people under control, and then identify the people who can be of use to them, who they advance. And as you know, most of our presidents and prime ministers and premiers have been Freemasons. So they basically, it's a way of recruiting people for this satanic agenda and for the satanic cult. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, and I would expand on that. And as you intimated, it's engineering intelligence, because those who join Freemasonry reveal secrets not only about themselves but about others. So it's also a means of finding compromised people and compromising other people. It is a means of charming people with mystical symbols and some knowledge that is not generally known, so that they feel that they're a part of something else, another alternative society. And just as with crypto-Judaism, when they start defining themselves in two different worlds, they become psychopathic and deceptive people. So it's a means of promoting a personality type which is willing to lie and willing to cheat and willing to steal.
I mean, look at your own city, your neighbor, Barack Obama in Chicago, there where you live, Chris. Are you aware that Barack Obama was just accused by a pastor of being a homosexual pimp? Are you following that? Barack Obama's being charged with homosexual activities and so on?
I've heard some things about that. Barack Obama has always troubled me as an observer of his senatorial race, because he came from nowhere in the most bizarre political series of calamities I've ever witnessed. There were many people in the race in both parties who were much better known than he was, and who got taken down by the press. And Jack Ryan had a much higher likelihood of succeeding than Barack Obama, who's a Democrat. Jack Ryan was a Republican, and he got taken down by the media, and his relationship and divorce with his wife was dissected by the media, and they brought out court records that no one was going after other than they. And it was incredible how this man came from nowhere to become elected senator. And then he's giving speeches, I believe, at the Democratic National Convention, and Larry King is praising him, and Oprah Winfrey is praising him, and all the big money people of the mass media are praising him, and he never accomplished anything that I'm aware of. And all of a sudden, he's headed to become our president, or at least he's being raised up to be knocked down so that madman John McCain becomes our president. But this, to me, it's incredible how he's come from nowhere to almost clinching the nomination from the Democrats.
It's just another illustration of how this evil, foreign, occult, or financial power, depending on your perspective, has totally co-opted the political and cultural processes of a whole nation, and people seem to be indifferent or totally unaware of what's going on.
And it's amazing.
Go ahead, Chris.
In this wonderful nation of ours, that these three idiots should be our choice for president is outrageous.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to be back in 3 minutes with our conclusion to this very provocative and downright excellent interview.
Looked up lately? Have you seen those crisscross trails that hang in the atmosphere long after a plane has passed over? Some are chemtrails, and they may be causing your health problems. It's a fact. Various governments, including the U.S., have been spraying chemicals in our upper atmosphere for years. Chemtrails is a very real cause of many health problems like pain, respiratory, or immune deficiencies that appear seemingly out of nowhere. But now your chronic illness can be helped. Introducing ChemBuster. ChemBuster is a natural remedy designed to combat and break through health problems caused by chemtrails. ChemBuster.us has more information and a special internet-only offer of just $17 per bottle. That's ChemBuster.us. Try ChemBuster yourself. Recommend to your sick friends and relatives, and after saving $2 on your first bottle, you'll save an additional $7 on your second bottle. Visit ChemBuster.us for important information and the special internet-only offer. That's ChemBuster.us.
The Healing Formula is an all-natural wound care formula developed mainly for the treatment of pressure sores, also called bed sores. The Healing Formula was developed by a home caregiver with over 30 years experience. We use the finest ingredients available, including organic aloe vera gel and 35% hydrogen peroxide. The Healing Formula works from the inside out, oxygenating the affected area, stopping the spread of infection, decreasing pain, while promoting healing. The Healing Formula has also proved effective in other areas, such as abrasions, cuts, burns, and rashes. There are over 6,000 peer-published documents on the ingredients in this healing bedsore formula, with not one adverse reaction reported when used properly. The Healing Formula comes with an unconditional money-back guarantee if you are not completely satisfied. We offer a free sample to all nursing homes, home caregivers, nurses, and anyone with a non-healing wound. Please visit our website at healingformula.com or call 800-357-2944. That's 800-357-2944.
Once upon a time, Megan, people bought their food at a grocery store.
Oh, I remember.
They're there, Mama.
A grocery store, Dad?
Yes, dear, but that was long ago.
But where did our food come from?
InternetGrocer.net.
InternetGrocer.net? So all these cans?
In uncertain times, we must be prepared. So we buy real canned meats, real canned cheese, and real canned butter from InternetGrocer.net.
And it's real good, Dad.
Only the highest quality dehydrated and freeze-dried foods and other emergency supplies. Drop shipped direct from the manufacturers right to our door.
So having stored food on hand means we don't have to go into town, right?
Your father's a wise man, Megan.
Be ready for an emergency with InternetGrocer.net's 1-year food supply, featuring the best variety in the business. Foods that will store 7 to 15 years or longer unopened. Go to Internet-Grocer.net. That's Internet-Grocer.net or call 903-356-6443.
Okay, we're back with Christopher John Bjerknes, whose website is JewishRacism.com, and he is one of the best informed people about the dilemma we face in terms of the New World Order and who's behind it. Now, one of the listeners wants to know, Chris, who the Messiah or the Antichrist is going to be. Is the Maitreya or the Mithraea? Is that guy just a distraction from Rothschild? Is the Messiah going to be a Rothschild?
I believe so, and the reason that I believe so is because the Rothschilds, from the early 1800s onward, have been not so quietly putting out the idea that they wanted to restore the Jews to Palestine and to be the king of the Jews in Palestine. And the Balfour Declaration itself was made out to Lord Rothschild. And they have been far and away the most powerful and the wealthiest among Jewish leaders. And they have been quietly the leading force behind Zionism for a very long time. So it only makes sense that one of them would be anointed as king.
Christopher, do you think that Rothschild wrote the Protocols of Zion? Because the author talks about when we come into our kingdom. And he also has a very good knowledge of high finances, 2 whole chapters dedicated to banking in the Protocols of Zion.
Well, Theodore Herzl also sought the sponsorship of the Rothschilds with varying degrees of success at varying times because they had their own plans, and he was one of their pawns. And you'll notice that his book, The Jewish State, also depends heavily upon economic issues, which is again why I say that the means that they had to bring this about was economic and geopolitical in terms of wars.
Okay, Christopher, we only have a couple of minutes left.
I don't know who actually wrote them. I can't put a name on who wrote the protocol.
Okay, Christopher, that's my theory. It's a Rothschild. But very briefly, I know you're thinking about starting a series of conferences with your colleague Bedros Hajian. Can you tell us briefly about that?
Reverend Bedros Hajian is a leader in the Armenian community, and he is very knowledgeable about Christian theology and about issues of Freemasonic infiltration of governments and about the Zionist agenda, and specifically how the Zionist agenda is bringing Armenia and the Middle East into conflict. And he and I are very concerned that not enough is being done to waken up the American public. And we plan to hold conferences probably starting in Los Angeles, moving through Chicago, and ending up in Watertown, Massachusetts, because that is where the Armenian community took a firm stance against the ADL, who was promoting Armenian genocide denial through their machinations in Congress to keep a resolution from getting passed which would recognize the Armenian side. So we thought that would be a fitting finale.
Christopher, again, I want to thank you for appearing on the show. I'm sorry your colleague Bedros couldn't make it, but you've been extremely informative as usual, and I want to give you my sincere thanks and that of my listeners. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much.
Next week, we've got Dr. Judith Weissman, expert on pornography, an expert on homosexuality, one of the most interesting and best informed people on the sexual aspect of the New World Order. So listen next week at 10 o'clock Central.
Men, are you urinating more frequently? Do you wake up to urinate? Now be honest. Is your sex drive what it used to be? Don't ignore the warning signs. Prostate problem.
Welcome everybody, it's November 23rd, and this is Male Mentoring with me, Henry Mackel. Our guest tonight is Christopher John Birkness, who is one of the most courageous and outspoken critics of ZOG, Zionist Occupational Government. Christopher, are you there?
I'm here, Henry. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Christopher, you live in Chicago, so you've had a front row seat on the career of Barack Obama. Does he Does he look different from your vantage point?
He does, and specifically he does because of the amazing way that he ended up as a senator in the U.S. Senate in replacement of Peter Fitzgerald's seat.
Can you elaborate a little?
Oh, certainly. Peter Fitzgerald was a very, very wealthy multimillionaire who had a successful Senate seat, but after one term he gave it up, which in itself was strange. And then in the Democratic primaries, there was another multimillionaire, a multimillionaire who had sold out his business to Goldman Sachs, named Blair Hull. And Blair Hull was running against Obama in the Democratic primaries and was very successful and had a tremendous lead over Obama in the polls. And then a story broke that he had something in his divorce proceedings which would generate a scandal if it came out. And that killed Blair Hull's campaign, and Obama won the Democratic primaries for U.S. Senate in Illinois as a result of that scandal. But that wasn't the only strange, apparently coincidental thing that helped promote Obama into stardom. Then in the Republican primary of the Illinois race, a man named Jack Ryan won the primary, and he was very popular, and he was almost certainly going to beat Obama in the general election. And then Jack Ryan was also associated with Goldman Sachs. I believe at one point he was a partner in Goldman Sachs. And almost exactly the same thing happened. A story came out that there were things in his divorce proceedings which, if they came out, would embarrass him and destroy his run for Senate. And he dropped out of the race. So we had a repetition of almost exactly the same thing. And then when he dropped out of the race, the Republican Party faced a dilemma because they had to propose a candidate to run against Obama. And I think there had been something like 10 different candidates who had run in the primaries from Illinois. And as I recall, they each petitioned the Republican Party to be the replacement for Jack Ryan, who had dropped out. But instead of picking from among them, they brought in Alan Keyes, which was a very odd choice. And the reason that they gave was that Alan Keyes was black. They wanted to run a black against a black, which was ridiculous. And Alan Keyes was a friend of William Kristol, who is a radical Zionist, very influential in the media, often appears on Fox News. And Alan Keyes essentially made an ass of himself again and again in the campaign and, of course, lost. And Obama won handily in the general election and became a U.S. Senator. And immediately the media started picking up on him, and he spoke at the Democratic National Convention in 2004.
Okay, the message we're getting, Christopher, the message we're getting is there's a hidden hand guiding the career of Barack Obama, and we're going to hear more about this hidden hand when we come back in 3 minutes.
Now that the election is over and the shock is beginning to wear off, Ready Reserve Foods, in an effort to get as many Americans prepared for the promised changes of a new administration and to help you and your family survive the global economic crash, Ready Reserve is offering the pre-inauguration special. Between now and January 20th, 2009, all food units U1 through U7 are being offered at wholesale prices. That's a 33% savings. A year's supply of meals starts as low as 73 cents per meal.